Hello guys, I'm back again. We are doing the last thing to do is part 3 today. We're doing about my friendships today, my friendships, congregations and relatives, my friends and family. We're just doing it here on the part 3 today. It could be about the last one. We are in about the quotes and hobbies. So we could do that for about all this environmental sort of about all these sort of evolution for about since every from last 10 years ago. I used it about 12 years ago. So I was at about 11 years for 10th grade. So we are in we are in about Colossal Hobbies number 9. So which is about on number 9, which is about 2 more to go. So Colossal Hobbies number 9. So Emerald Ridge High Schools, I do have about my teachers or paraeducator teachers for Mrs. Nyers, Mrs. Byer, Mrs. Welch, Mrs. Owens, Mrs. K, Mrs. Schrader, Miss Height, Mr. Rank, Miss Ellen and Antelo, and Mrs. Burnley, and Mrs. McQuilkin, Miss McCool, Mrs. Dillon, Mrs. Tarver, Mrs. Osborne, Miss Sue Fitzpatrick, and Mrs. Rodall. So I would basically just about my storylines today for about the first, third, and fifth period on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and including about second, fourth, and sixth period on Wednesdays and Fridays. I basically about every Mondays through first to sixth periods. I usually about some advisory for Miss Parks and about almost to the concern about last 12 years ago. Even when I was in about JAG time for about 30 minutes ago. I used it about 3 years ago, so spent a lifetime for about Emerald Ridge High Schools. So I basically for about Jag News today for about whole television shows or the Jaguar TVs. I basically for about the TV shows for about their assemblies of tonight is about the King of the Hill, Queen of the Hill, Homecoming Games, Homecoming Dance, which is about the every year since about September's and October's. Um, my former principal, Miss Johnson, and Connie, and Mrs. Cushy, and then my still teachers from Mrs. Cushy, and she stills at about Emerald Ridge High Schools. I'm a former teacher for the cross country of Mrs. Osborne for Emerald Ridge for the cross country coach. She basically for about we working for about guys and girls cross country for about every 3 months ago. Um, I was something basically was just about athletics country for about schedules environmentals for athletes of a days. I basically for about requirements for shows. Um, I would certainly be working about entire 2 months ago for about wrestlings, the basketballs, and soccer players. I noticed it since about bowling alleys. I could be useful for about basketballs and wrestlings, the bowling alleys, and then I was certainly about golf course and soccer players, and they only have about February to June. I used to basically about high schools and junior high schools and elementary schools every 9 months ago. I usually about 2011 and 2012 school years. I usually about for theaters to start as a nearby at World's End and On Stranger Ties, and then From a Dead Man's Chest and The Curse of the Black Pearl. Then I used one of them about Disney Channel's John Carter. Since a lot of showdowns about real case, I usually for basically about for the last 10 minutes ago. So for those things to really do about most and complemental for about telling relationship shows. So sorry. So related to for about an entire and my entire friends and with the movie theaters since Raymond Dakota and Chris and Dayton to Rogers and Raymond's doing a Mrs. McQuilkin's class, and including for about Danny and Casey and Joshua and Kaisa and Glacier Views and Brandon and Alex and Javon and Jeremy, Donovan and Jared and I were just following from Ferrucci Junior High Schools, and then even eventually for about Cody, Raymond, and Tyler, and then Aisha the kind for about since every people in class for about the community outings for about every month ago. So Pumpkin Patch are pretty good at it. So I love Pumpkin Patch. So I usually about to take a tour in it. So I usually buy pumpkins, just paying for the cash and whatever it takes. So I basically, since my friends on the Facebooks, then doing it on pumpkin patches decorations for the trick or treaters. I usually steal about pirate costumes with a pirate hat. I was certainly for about. I just gave it to kids for the trick or treaters candies and with the costumes. I usually about. I finally just about give a little bit give little young people for about the candies, and about last 5 months ago, I certainly like giving them candy. So it's pretty nice of you. I just really respect them. To give it those candies, or about just 3 or 4 things of the candies. Um, as high as I want to do. So, however, we're just gonna have to do that for about the most extreme. So I can do about exactly the same. So what I have to just going on to, we're just gonna have to head back home as soon as possible, and as long as I wanted about discover to so hard back into what I want, and I would certainly would just have it about the great times a day. We're just gonna have to do whatever you do. So I know the sense about I just wanted to make sure to discover to about for the quite explanation point. So high school is about guys and dolls, and Footloose this could be a never seen it before. Since every people can do have about Footloose in the night, auditoriums, assemblies, and then the basketball court, and then outside for football fair and the track and field where it's Mr. Fry and Mr. Mullen and Mr. Bate and Mr. Mullen and Mr. Dittis, Mr. Water and Fox Mullen. Yeah. All my friends that came here for about when I ate for the lunch about 40 minutes. That's what I can do. So last one is about quotes and hobbies number 10. Just about last one's about 1 through 10. Just about quotes or hobbies number 10. We're on the same page. So last page about number 10. I was basically I usually about just hang out with my friends. The Interact Key Clubs for 30 minutes ago. I usually have Miss McMullen and First Christian Church. We working hardest as long as I can. So my responsibilities, I was gonna have to make a call my dad and my Frankie and Bella and Aisha about my guardians if we were thinking. So always get responsible as long as you can. So before it's not too late. I worked out 2 hours ago. I just basically for about Mrs. McMullen's class for about 3 years ago. I was certainly basically I just about left beside us about Mrs. Dooley's class for about some every Thursday since about art decorations. So we do that for the decoration for the Miss Schrader's class. So I basically call for about the Miss Mallion's class, Mrs. Scheinbaum's class, and then the most they do have about Mrs. McQuilkin's class. So I purposely for about since the 10 years since about for the last 12 years ago, I was certainly for basically use it to make it fine with it for someone now. As far as when I concerns about 12 years ago from 2011, from September 2011 during the school years, and then ride the big bus and I would certainly say October. So I just gave people for candies from the house to I just respected a lot of kids for the candy. So I basically it's just about discovery for the videos action to do my the whole action since of my friends and my families and my relatives, my congregation, the neighbors, and I was only congregations to this. One of the program is also nearby. I usually feel about usually discovers to I use it about a whole travel around to the driveway to this world and travel around the world and travel this world as much as I choose and I can. And Hawaii's on my best since my mom just about missing her home about tributes to home every problem since my entire opportunity of her life. Then what's gonna have to do that for shows? She usually for about 10 minutes ago for the online today. So I was basically I was usually for about usually the brainstorm so about when working for about listeners for Miss Malian and Miss Nyers, and I was certainly for could be having about junior year to go. I was have been about signing in for about community outings since about every 9 months ago. I was certainly can do. I was certainly almost about extreme to understand. We heard about each other's. I know this is since it understands we're just having about or her great time for about we staying for once in a while for hangouts and then Zach and Cody, Jordan and I were just have hangout for Mrs. Nyer's class and with Psycho Benz and I just do that for about Fox Mullen and Mr. Dittis and Mr. Wardle and Jack class and freedom for the weight rooms as long as I can. So I did that for about since my students and I would just have about the young people just about the track and field as long as it would about track and field until senior years. So I did that for about 2013 and 2014 school years. And Miss St. Canellas replacing Miss Nyer's cast. She was retired from Emerald High School. She retired from Piala School Districts. I did that Miss St. Canella's class for about. I was at the last day for the high schools. I was certainly basically I just do that for about who scheduled activities, mainly for the rules for about 8 months ago. I would certainly basically would just do that for about entire opportunity, go out for about the community jobs and volunteers and IEP meetings about 3 years ago. I could be certainly for to do that for about from Ferrucci Junior High Schools, from Ridgecrest Elementary Schools. I did for about the working on portfolios of doing a filling in. We're not doing the graduation day for the class of 2014. So I did about the reactions today for about since my friends and my families and my congregations and my relatives just watching over about when I graduated today for a class of 2014. And what I was to do that for about the whole purposes, I just went out for about an advanced program, just heading straight to for 2 years straight for the job size. So I've been paid tributes to about for the last 8 years for the last I'm also about 9 years ago from an advanced program. I usually about graduated from the last 9 years ago from 2014. I was a 19. Since my friend, I was sitting with Marissa and Marissa and I were having good friends of NMIT Club. So I just left the decoration class for Miss Dooley for the last 9 years ago for February 2014 after IEP meetings for advanced program for 2 years. When I went to about I couldn't make it for college and university for about the 2 years. I couldn't make it for about the Pierce College anytime. So I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about this. What happened to say? So and also could be a tragedy. And they says that that's okay. So we'll be at time for about to get a job. Job application after the summer vacations and 123 days. September's and could be a job interviews in October's. So just like in 2007 and 16 years. Yeah. I'll be sure it'll be alright. So may the Lord bless you. Thank you for the coming in, for listening for about quotes and hobbies number 1 to 10. So we're done here. Alright guys, so thank you so much for the coming in for guys. So make sure don't forget hit the button to subscribe to more content. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, School to Defiance Cameras, subscribe on TikToks and Telegrams and Google Chats, and subscribe on follow to the Becky Lynch fans, Ronda Rousey's fans, and then subscribe to Ronda Rousey, the baddest dream under the planet, and the Bella Twins, the Nia Hart, and make sure don't forget to buy it. So buy the Feather Picks, the DLC packs on 30th on this Thursday on Jurassic World Evolution 2. Just pack of a dinosaurs, just viewing galleries. I was just having about hard time today. So the Hunt to Call for the Wild comes out until June 2023. So one clue for about the 2 months of May. I used it about for the African hunters. So about the Hunter Call for the Wild, African 2.0 animals here. They have hyenas, still lions, Cape buffaloes, gamsboks and kudus and jackals, scrub hares and warthogs. The new animals is elephants, crocodiles, leopards and rhinoceros, and the giraffes, and including giant elands and the greater kudu. That's inclusive of gazelles and impala. And then subscribe on DD33, Lady Legend XOs, the Lone Gamers, the Scarecrows, Flinters, Ramen Tubes, and Kale Clinton, and most of the time is Jackson Beers and Spencer Worlds, and as the Hunter to Call for a while, subscribers to Spencer Worlds, and thank you so much, Spencer Worlds. Don't forget to buy the game. Make sure you pay it for $7.99. That's for the Hunt to Call for the Wild extended animals of an entire opportunity of the Hunt to Call for the Wild every June to December 2023. Next year is about the June to December 2024. The Hunt to Call for the Wild, new animals. Don't forget. So make sure you do have about more contests of the day. Feel free to watch on Lady Legends, Flinters, Ramen Tubes, Lady Legend, XOs, Scarecrows, Rich G's, DD33, Jackson Beers, and Expansive Worlds. Alright. Thank you so much for the comment, guys. So we're done here for about quotes of hobbies number 1 to 10. And that was about 75 minutes ago for part 1 to 3. Alright. Video's over, guys. Feel free to watch. Don't forget. So keep it regimented.